my kings, queens, and fellow non-binary leaders, and welcome back to Nerdy Nakuma. Today, we're gonna get started with a short TsukiYamaKageHina series called Foggy. This is the first part, and it's all based on this request from the wonderful Kaede. Thank you so much for requesting this video. If you're watching right now, also have an idea for a video, feel free to put it in the comments, and to make sure I absolutely will not miss it, there's also a link to a request form on most video descriptions and definitely in the channel description. So check that out if you like. And yeah, today is one of the first videos with the new mic, so let me know how the quality is. Don't be surprised, the one tomorrow and the day after tomorrow I still without the mic because I did not record them in the order in which they are uploaded. But the one on Monday for most of you, Tuesday for some of you, depending on your time zone, is also recorded with a new mic. And yes, we will have 4 videos throughout the whole weekend, so enjoy! Hey, Yamaguchi-kun? Going home soon? Yamaguchi looked up from where he was finishing up inventory on some of the back shelves. He smiled tiredly at his coworker, who just got done carrying over a few more boxes and began sorting their contents into their respective places. Yeah, I was just about to sign off. Do you need me for anything? Nah, don't worry. Enjoy your evening. Just, if you could, can you place those boxes outside for cardboard collection? He followed his gaze and nodded quickly. Sure, I'll take them with me after clocking out. See you tomorrow. His coworker gave him a tired nod, and Yamaguchi didn't envy him for having to stay longer to finish some reshuffling since the inventory expanded this week, with the inclusion of a new line of products. He himself had already accumulated too much overtime during the last 2 weeks and couldn't volunteer for more without violating worker protection laws. His boyfriends had been traveling for work the past month, and without them, their home felt just too empty. A little extra work felt better than the painful echo of their absence. He must have gotten used to it, because today too he got up early much to Tsukishima's surprise, and was an hour early at his job. At least, that meant catching Kageyama's arrival before his shift. The poor satyr seemed dead on his feet and barely lucid. He looked practically straight through Yamaguchi and rested his head on the smallest shoulder as soon as the chance presented itself. His protest when Yamaguchi urged that he had to leave for work wasn't verbal, but no less insistent. He had chuckled while Tsukishima gently coaxed their boyfriend up the stairs to fall into bed next to Hinata. Apparently, extensive traveling on top of practice and matches was among the truly rare things to truly tire them out. A small smile tugged at Yamaguchi's lips that soon distorted into a yawn as he slung his bag over his shoulder and pressed the stack of cardboards under his arm. Less than graceful, he pressed the back door open by more or less leaning against it and stumbled into the warm night outside. A mumbled groan passed under his lips. The humidity clung to his skin and nightfall had barely cooled the air. It wasn't exactly pleasant. A dull thud resounded in the alley as he dropped the stack of cardboards onto the collection site. It echoed like it was bouncing around in his skull. Light from the alley entrance blurred his vision, and he turned his head just in time to see a car pass, headlights on. He took a deep breath and suppressed a sigh. His hand shot up to rub over his temple as he felt a headache building. He reached for his bag to search the side pocket for a pill of ibuprofen, but found none. Behind him, a sharp clang drew his attention, and he paused. The reflex to call out was quickly swallowed, and he chuckled nervously at the image of it. Why would he call out to an empty alley? If someone answered, even worse. Yamaguchi shook his head, but couldn't help check just to make sure. As expected, he found nothing but a few loose pieces of plastic sheets and screws aside from the cardboard pile, any of which could have tipped over and caused the noise his ears seemed too oversensitive towards at the moment. What's next? A cat coming to collect scraps? He felt stupid for acting like he was in one of the bad horror movies Hinata liked to watch so much, and Tsuki mercilessly tore to pieces if forced to partake. For a moment, he leaned back against the wall, a hand over his heart, until it calmed. His gaze went up, trying to see the stars through a canopy of light pollution blanketing the city. The few glimpses here and there, not casted by airplanes on their nightly flights, were oddly soothing. They blurred with the heat, and soon he closed his eyes exhausted before before kicking himself off the wall again. It felt like in the short moment the world had tilted a little, grown a little darker despite storefronts still showcasing their wares and signs. He frowned as he noticed that less than usual had kept the lights on at this hour. The green-haired kept his eyes on the pavement, watching the faint shimmering of light reflections speckled across its path as he passed the 24-hour combini stores. His walk home felt more cumbersome and arduous than usual, coaxing a huge sigh of relief from him when finally his feet halted on their front steps to the house. The first breath of cool air from the inside would have been invigorating if he hadn't craved their bed so badly. He didn't even care for dinner. Usually he stayed up longest from the four of them, to the point they dubbed him the night owl of the bunch, but today he could do little more than dream of soft pillows and light blankets. He should check that they too had... The sound of steps rushing towards him, not in excitement but driven by anxiety, had him look up, when already arms had slung themselves around his middle and his side was drowned in orange curls. "Tadashi! Oh, thank goodness! You..." Hinata's voice broke off in what sounded almost like a sob. His hold on him was bone-crushing, and Yamaguchi very confusedly patted over his back in what he hoped to be his soothing motion. He wasn't awake enough to react with the same panic that had driven the smaller into his arms, and just blinked dazed, trying to understand what happened. "Shoyo... what... you're home." Kageyama appeared in the doorframe, and the moment he recognized them, mimicked Hinata and rushed, albeit a bit less frantically and uncontrolled, towards them. He slung his arms around both of them, and soon Yamaguchi felt fingers intertwining with the long white strands of his lower hair and carefully pushing his head into a kiss Kageyama placed on his temple. "You're back." He repeated it almost reverently, in what sounded close to gratitude, and only added to Yamaguchi's confusion. They weren't just happy to see him, they were relieved. Only slowly their bodies let go of an anxious tension he couldn't puzzle together at all. Did something happen? He tried to step back to look at them. Had he missed an emergency warning of any kind? A power outage or an earthquake? That could explain why his uninjured arrival might not have been expected but only hoped for. "You tell us. Where were you?" Tsuki sounded downright angry as he arrived in the hallway alongside them and stared him down to the point Yamaguchi flinched. He tapped Hinata on the shoulder, and the other let go of him reluctantly, as did Kageyama, who looked even less satisfied with the action. The shorter looked between the other middle blocker and Yamaguchi, as though torn between sharing in Tsukishima's anger or still letting the relief Yamaguchi still couldn't place take over anew. "What are you talking about? At work, of course." He let his back drop demonstratively. His brows had pulled together in irritation, and he needed that ibuprofen now more than ever if Tsuki didn't drop the accusation in his voice soon. The other was deaf to his silent plea because he scoffed, and at once the noise burrowed under his skin, adding to his irritation. It didn't help that there was at least something like a worried undertone in the blonde's voice as he continued. "So did you just lie when you said you wouldn't take any overtime anymore this month?" "What?" His frown deepened, and Hinata's attempt to defuse the situation only worsened his quickly declining mood. "What he means is that it would have been nice if you could have texted us if that changed. We were really worried." "Well, that. Though nice isn't exactly the word I'm looking for basic communication. More like essential or... okay." At Kageyama's reprimand, Tsukishima actually paused and took a deep breath, the crossed arms loosening a little and words losing a bit of their biting edge. "Also, you said you maxed out your overtime for the month. That limit exists for a reason. It's not healthy to go beyond, especially not in this short amount of time." This time, worry rang through, and the other two nodded in agreement as though that made perfect sense. Only it didn't. Yamaguchi looked between them incredulously, as if waiting for one of them to say psych. No one did. "What are you talking about?" "We're just worried you overwork yourself." Wow, look who's speaking. He let out a small laugh, but immediately swallowed it as Hinata looked down, hurt. What was going on? What were they so freaked out about? Faced with the sheer absurdity of their behavior, he didn't know whether he should feel amused or irritated. Shoyo hasn't overworked himself at all this past season. Our coaches wouldn't even let us if we tried, and he's gotten a lot better at recognizing his limits. Hags, No, he's right. What is your problem, Tadashi? My problem? He drew in a sharp breath between his teeth, then another, trying to focus on how his chest expanded with it while rubbing his temples again. A little calmer, he straightened his back again. My problem is that I have a headache, and instead of being able to get some painkillers and rest, you're dragging me into some kind of intervention for what exactly? Oh, I'm sorry for being worried when our partner comes home late without warning us that he'd be out longer. Okay, he really tried to be calm about this, but this was getting ridiculous. They left him alone in an empty house for almost a month and were agitated if he got here a few minutes late? Maybe a more awake Yamaguchi would have realized that, no, his boyfriends wouldn't usually react this intensely to a slight delay, but well, he wasn't awake enough for this. I'm very sorry for not being a top athlete like you all, who can just run home. So I've been working a little bit more slowly than usual because of a headache. Sue me. He rushed past them to the kitchen to finally take the painkiller. At this point, every noise and light was chipping away at his nerves like nails on a blackboard. If Tsuki wanted a fight, fine. The longer he kept him from rest and medicine, the more ugly of a fight he could have. Wait, Tadashi? What? The suddenly much lower, almost soothing voice didn't immediately placate him, though he felt his resolve weakening. He felt like a wreck threatening to collapse the longer this proceeded. What do you want now? Interrogate me some more? Is it so much to ask to be welcomed home after weeks of coming home to nothing? He felt tears stinging in his eyes and his voice growing thick. Furiously, he wiped them away and tried to swallow the pill with water, but promptly choked on it and coughed it out again. A curse slipped under his breath as he scrambled to pick it up again, but suddenly there were hands on his, and he didn't have the strength to pull them away. He hadn't even noticed that he had begun sobbing, ugly, hiccupy sobs. Hey, shh. Deep breath in. And out. You can do it. Just try to copy me. In. And out. In. And out. Good. Again. He wanted to be mad at him. Instead, his fingers grabbed onto the torso so tightly it must hurt. Maybe that at least could count as a small form of revenge. Shoyo appeared next to him. He had thrown away the pill Yamaguchi tried to take at first and handed him now a new one with a glass of water. Carefully he accepted it, and this time luckily managed to swallow the medicine and drink the remaining water. His head was killing him. Thanks. Sorry for yelling. Hinata gave him a small smile and squeezed his hands gently as he put the glass into the sink. Exhausted, Yamaguchi let himself sink against Tsukishima's side. Hey, I'm sorry too. I was just worried when you weren't coming home. I thought something might have happened to you. We just weren't expecting you to work longer today. Not that again. I told you already I didn't. From the corner of his eye, he saw them exchanging a glance, but didn't have energy left anymore to try and decipher it. Tadashi? What time did you leave at work? I don't know, like 6. Sorry if it took me 10 minutes more. I was really tired. He tried not to get angry again. He didn't want to fight, and the irritation was hurting his head. Yet, when he glanced up, Tsukishima didn't look angry, but alarmed. How late do you think it is now? I already said, I'm sorry, How late? He insistently yet gently kept his cheeks, and Yamaguchi was too tired to resist or be confused anymore. He sighed. 7, Maybe half past. That was a generous guess. He didn't think it had taken him quite that long, but surely if they reacted like that, he couldn't just have been 10 minutes overdue. Tsukishima shook his head slightly, and behind him, Hinata let out a small noise of shock. He tried turning to him, but Tsukishima's grip was still tight and only loosened when he tried to move. What? It's after midnight. 46 minutes after, to be precise. Hinata held up his phone for proof, and Yamaguchi's frown deepened. What? What's the last thing you remember? Coming home, I guess. Before that, after you left work. I don't know, Kay. I brought out the cardboard for collections and then went home. Obviously something must have happened in between. Yamaguchi winced. This was all too much for him. His head was pounding. He began feeling dizzy and nauseous, and with every passing second, he craved their bed more. Okay, I don't know. Please, I just need some sleep. I'm tired. Tadashi, this is serious. If something happened, nothing happened. He hated how his voice rose again, and the pain that stabbed through his head immediately after. Tsukishima noticed how he flinched in pain and reached out for him. His fingers were cool against his cheek, and Yamaguchi leaned into the touch. Please just let me sleep. We can talk about this tomorrow, okay? Tsukishima looked about the opposite of satisfied with that. His lips were pressed together tightly, but eventually he nodded slowly. Okay. Tomorrow. Yamaguchi tried to force a small smile, which seemed to fail its intended effect completely. He tried to somehow alleviate the worry drawn so clearly on Kei's and Tobia's face, but every thought hurt the longer he tried to force it into a usable shape. And soon Hinata's fingers snuck around his wrist. Come on, I'm tired too. He didn't even doubt that if it truly was as late as they said. The moment his head hit the pillow was pure bliss. Thank you everyone for watching to the end. It really helps me out a whole bunch, and I am super happy if you enjoyed the video enough that you got to this point. Thank you so much. Yeah, let me know how the quality was of the video with the new mic. By the way, I'm not recording the outro with the new microphone and not the intro. Don't question my process. It's a creative process. Anyway, yeah, I really hope you liked it. Let me know what your favorite quote was under the pinned comment, and what other videos, and especially what ships you want to see on the channel now that I'm slowly back and getting my creative energy together again to write. A special thanks as always goes out to my Nekos who get most of these videos in advance and early access. So if that's something that sounds interesting to you, feel free to check out the join button under this video. Here am I at social media, and shortly in the end cut there will be more videos. Check them out if you like, and now before the day. Bye!
Everybody just do your thing. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Wake up.